Hey everybody, welcome to Drive-Thru Review 287. Today we're going to talk about Battle Merchants. This is a new game from Minion Games. Was recently kickstarted and is coming to players now. It plays 2 to 4 players in about 90 minutes, which is about right. And it may look on the surface like an Ameritrash style game, but it's very much an economic game. I wouldn't even call this a Euro. I'd call it more pure economics. Basically, the idea of the game is that each player is a different merchant, and you're selling weapons and different things to different sides of a battle. So you may even sell weapons to both sides of a battle yourself, and have one side beat the other and things like that. And there's also some other little special cards and different special abilities that you can get throughout the game. So it's not too dry. There's enough sort of variability in there to kind of change things up and mix things up a little bit. But let's go ahead and take a look at how it works, and I'll come back and give you my review. Okay, so the first thing to notice about this game, you can see this side of the board here says 3 players, and there's another side of the board. But you can see here, the orcs are fighting the elves in the forest. So you can see these are the battles that are going to take place. Here you've got the orc side and the elf side. And then the orcs are fighting the hobgoblins here in the desert. And here you've got the orc side and the hobgoblin side. Likewise, the hobgoblins are fighting the elves. So if we take a look at the 2 and 4 player side of the board, we can see we've got another army here. The dwarves are fighting the elves. The dwarves are also fighting the hobgoblins, and so on. And so what players are trying to do is sell these different weapons and armaments to the different armies to fight each other with. So you maybe will sell the swords to the elves here, and another player maybe will sell the axes, or even you may sell weapons to both sides to try to benefit from their war. So let's set up the 3 player side of the board, and I'll tell you how a turn works. One thing to note as well is each of the player boards also will have a different side based on the players. So if you're the blue player, you're going to use this in a 3 player game. If you flip it over, you're going to use this in a 2 or 4 player game. Now the differences are going to be what weapons you are able to start off crafting. In this case, Max's Metalworks can do macing and swords, and they have favor with the hobgoblins. Whereas if we're just playing a 3 player game, you get hammers and axes and still have favor with the hobgoblins to start the game. I've also got a little turn summary here, and just a little table for weapon prices, and then spots here to put kingdom cards, forged weapons, and defeated weapons, which I'll talk about more in a minute. Now each player is going to start the game with $10. You can see you got kind of nice looking money here. Here's the 1s, and they got a little symbol on the back here, the 5s and the 50s. So let's talk about what you're going to do on a turn. So a game is going to take place over 4 seasons, and that's going to be made up of a different number of actions, kind of depending on what the players choose to do. Now once a battle is set, basically there's a weapon on either side of one of these tokens here. You're going to take this token and put it into the current season, and then once you get 3 battles that are active, then you're going to trigger the end of the round. Everybody else is going to get a turn, and then you're going to do some resolutions of the battles. Now as these battles fill up, you're going to start to unlock more and more battles as the game progresses, even during the round. This is not going to be a strictly scripted idea here. It's going to be very much dependent on what the players do. So you're going to take turns doing one action until 3 of these lock up, and then you're going to resolve. So what are you going to do exactly as an action on your turn? And the first thing you might do would be to upgrade one of your craft cards. Now there's 2 decks of craft cards. You're going to use this deck in the first 2 seasons, and then when you hit autumn and winter, you're going to pull cards out of this, and they're going to kind of be better and different. One thing you might do would be to take this card here, and you can see here, this is going to upgrade your sword ability there. You can see the little icon there. This is going to cost you 1 times the number of swords you currently have. So if you had 3 swords, then it would cost you $3. Now the cards with this little icon there, that's going to give you a $1 discount whenever you craft a sword. Likewise, this one with the mace here will give you a $1 discount. Now some of these here have 2 icons on them, so you can see this would actually bump up your axe skill level by 2, but this one's going to cost you 2 times the number of axes. So if you had 4 axes already, that costs you $8 to get 2 more. Now not all of these are going to cost money. You can see here, you can just take that one and it'll just give your hammer for free and stuff like that. And so anything that usually is the double is going to cost you a little bit of money, and then anything that gives you, as you can see there, the little discount. Now as you get later on in the game, there'll be some that give you, let's see, here's one. Gives you a sword and a hammer and so on. So the first action is basically simply just take a craft card, and then you replenish from the stack. The next thing you might do is to take a kingdom card, and some of these cards you're going to pull out depending on the number of players. Like this will be in all player counts. Some, when you're playing with 3, you'll pull a couple out. and you're just simply going to take one of these. Now these are sequenced but also randomized, so there's an A deck and B deck all the way down to the D card. And so simply just take the card. Some of these will actually give you money, so when you take this extra crafty item, you will get plus $2. And then, like for example, this one will give you a desert tile, and there'll be a lot of different things. This is really cool. So this is the thing that keeps it from being really stale and dry, is this kingdom deck. But it's also something that you want to definitely give the game at least one play to familiarize yourself with what's in the deck and when they're going to come up and stuff like that. So that's the second thing you can do, is take one of these kingdom cards. Now if you look here in spring, you have a maximum of 2 kingdom cards. Then you can go up to 3, and then finally once you hit winter you can have up to 4 kingdom cards. So that's something you also want to keep in mind as far as which kingdom cards you want that are permanent. So you can see some of these are permanent, and some of these will be end game scoring there. They'll say end at the bottom, or they may even say, you know, immediate. So this one you just immediately get $5. The next thing you might do is to forge a weapon. When you take this action to forge, you can forge up to 3 different weapons. Now you can see here on the weapon prices table, a standard weapon is going to cost you $5 to make, and it's going to cost you give you $6 when you sell it. If you still have one at the end of the game, you get kind of a consolation $2. Now there's also Vorpal weapons, which cost you $15. You can sell for $18, and a consolation of $12 at the end of the game. Now you have to have at least, you know, 1 craft card to make one of these weapons. But if you have 5 or more in a particular craft, in this case I've got 6 in the axes, then I can make a Vorpal weapon. So there's 2 kinds of weapons here. You got a normal mace there, you got a sword, and then you've also got axes, but here we can see a Vorpal axe, which I can make. So let's say, for argument's sake, we'll get rid of this one. I want to make a mace, a sword, and a Vorpal axe. So it's going to cost me $15, $20, $25. I go ahead and craft these, and I'll stick these off to the side here. And if I want, I can go ahead and put my little cube on there just so I don't get them mixed up. And so that's very simply how you craft weapons. Pay the amount. Anything that you can craft, and again, Vorpal, if you have 5 or more in a particular craft, you can do a Vorpal. Well, what do you want to do with these weapons? Obviously, you want to sell them to one of the battles. Now, when you sell, you can only sell 1 item at a time. So let's say we wanted to sell our awesome Vorpal axe over here to the orcs in the forest there. So we're going to put that there. And then we're going to get, as the base sell value, $18. Now, if we look over here, we've got a favor with the orcs. So for every favor tile, including the one you have printed on your board, you're going to get an extra $1. So instead of 18, we would have gotten 19. Now, if I also had the forest tile, which can only be got through a kingdom card, anytime I sell to anything in the forest, in this case the elves or the orcs, I'll get also another extra bonus $1. And now, since I'm the yellow player here, I get to take my orc favor chip. So anytime you sell to the orcs, you get to take a favor chip. So next time I'll get an extra $2 because I've already got 1 on my board and then 1 from here. Now you won't get any more for this season until the next season when this gets replenished. Now there are kingdom cards and things like that that will give you, you know, extra of these tiles, kind of breaking the normal rules, but basically you only get 1 bonus per season. So you kind of want to mix it up a little bit, maybe even sell to the orcs here and then also sell to the elves on the other side, so you can grab, you know, your elf favor chip. And then also when you have a battle, which I'll explain later, it's also beneficial, probably more beneficial to you to fight yourself sometimes, but it kind of depends how the game's shaken out. Now the last action that you can do is a forge and sell, but you can only do that if you have gotten the Master Craftsman. Now there's 1 of these for each weapon type. So we've got hammers, maces, swords, and axes. And the first person to hit 6 in a particular skill, so let's say I'm the first person to hit the axes and be at 6, then I'm going to take the axe Master Craftsman, and now I've got that. Nobody else can get that, even if they catch up to me later. So there's 1 for each of these. And then once per season, you can flip this card face down, forge an axe, and then sell it immediately. So that's a very important thing, and it's hard to explain without having actually played the game, but there's a certain timing element to that that's pretty interesting. So that's the final action you can do if you're a Master Craftsman, is forge and immediately sell it. So as I said, as you fill in these spots here, these little fire tokens here are going to move into the middle. So let's say I built Vorpal axe there, the red player had sold the hammer. This is going to go here. This will unlock the next space. So now we have still 3 battles in this first season that we can sell to. So let's say this one here fills up, we go to here, and then maybe this one gets filled up. That will trigger the end of the round, making these available obviously. And then whoever triggers that, That's the last turn of the round for them, and then every other player gets one more turn, and then we're going to resolve battles. Well, it's very simple. Vorpals always beat regular, so Vorpal Axe here would always beat the regular hammer. Now, if they were both Vorpals or they were both regulars, you take a look at the skill cards that each player has, and whoever has the most skill would be the winner. Now what happens if you're the winner, you're basically going to knock this one out, they'll get the cube back. You take and flip this weapon over here, and you're going to put this over here in your defeated weapon stash there. So you've got 1 point for the hammer. Now if one of your Vorpals is defeated, then that's going to give the opponent 2 points. And you can see here at the end of the game, this is going to come into play there. So you're going to sell off your unsold weapons. Remember, you get this sort of the consolation. And then let's say we're playing, in this case, a 3 or 4 player game. Whoever has the first or the most of these defeated weapon points is going to get an extra 15 bucks. Second will get 7 bucks. And then of course some of this kingdom cards and things will give you bonus money. Now after you've resolved all the battles, anybody that still has a weapon out on the board gets a bonus $2 because it's kind of like maintenance on the contract. And think of these as contracts, because remember, this battle doesn't actually happen until you fill up the season. This is like your contract to supply the battle, supply the weapons when the battle occurs. So this gets knocked out, and now you've got a little bit of maintenance on your contract. So everybody's going to get $2 for each weapon that's on the board, whether it happened to be involved in a battle or not. Now if there's a tie for some reason, then both players are going to discard their weapons. Nobody gets any of the defeated weapon points. They just go back to the supply and everybody gets a buck. So you can see as the game sort of evolves, the first round you basically have, a couple little battles in the front lines here, so to speak. But once you get into the second, third, and fourth rounds, there's no reason you can't go back to a battle and fight there. So if, let's say this one was a Vorpal Hammer here, he defeated whatever. There's no reason I can't come back here in a later round and put my Vorpal Axe in there, which I've been totally polishing my skills on to knock him out. So it becomes much more wide open and free form, after that first round, and it becomes very interesting how to kind of pace the game, because if you start triggering these to come off, then you're going to kind of quicken the end of the round, whereas maybe you're trying to really oversell and saturate the board with a lot of your weapons and things. So that's pretty much how you play. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. I kind of went into this one with, I wouldn't say low expectations, but just kind of like not really sure, because it's sold as an economic game but set in a fantasy universe, which is usually I've seen a couple of really probably under the radar attempts at it that didn't really work out. But this one works very well. The turn actions that you can do are very simple. You forge a weapon, you sell a weapon, you take a card. That's pretty much it. And a lot of it is going to be based on what the other players are doing, what kind of weapons are they making, maybe they make a bunch of axes and you go, okay, well, what are the axes available? How close are they getting to Vorpal weapons? And there's a little bit of gamesmanship with choosing the crafting cards. Now the first couple of turns are going to go by very quickly, especially after you've played it. You're like, okay, crafting card, kingdom card, crafting card, So you just kind of tech up a little bit quickly that way. And then by that second season though, you really jump into the meat of the game. And it's very interesting because you can push the game end. Because all it is triggering those battles as you kind of move down the line. All the battles up above aren't going to trigger the end of the game. They're still available to sell things to, but those battles at the bottom are going to spark off, the season. So it's very interesting that players can manipulate that. You can sell to both sides. You can say, well, here, I'll put a Vorpal down and I'll always throw, my crappy swords at it. So then I'm getting those end game, whatever I call it, repair points for the different destroyed weapons and stuff. So that's pretty cool. So there's a lot of really neat things that you can do that isn't really driven by the mechanics, which are really straightforward, but it's going to be driven by the pace of the game, how much money you think players are making and all that kind of stuff. So, and it really does kind of fit the theme. I mean, the art is funny. Some of the cards, the kingdom cards are pretty interesting, and it does feel thematic. It's a little cartoony, but I think it's really well done. It's not badly drawn, and it's not silly, but it is silly and kind of at the same time. So I do think the theme actually works really well. You feel kind of like this sort of, scum of the earth merchant trying to sell arms to these different warring factions and trying to take advantage of their war and stuff, sort of war profiteering, but in this kind of silly fantasy universe. So I think if you like, an economic game, and then I would take a look at this. And, if you want a game that, you know, you're more of a thematic gamer, I think maybe this might work okay for you, because the theme of it does come across. But if you kind of want to, you know, you don't really like to do trading in the Mediterranean or whatever kind of stereotype you want to throw out, this is one that you can get into because, like I said, the mechanics are really straightforward and easy. So you're not really going to be overly encumbered with all these kind of wonky mechanics that, you know, a person that doesn't like Euros, for example, is going to hate. But you still have some, you know, brain burn that's going to happen where, you know, you can try to manipulate the economy. But anyway, so that is Battle Merchants. Definitely take a look at it. Thanks.